first reading this morning comes from the charge to the Article 2 Study Commission. This was from the Unitarian Universalist Association Board of Trustees, giving instruction to the commission that drafted a new statement of our values, a new statement that is part of the most important element of our bylaws as a UUA. The Article 2 Study Commission is hereby charged to review Article 2 of the UUA bylaws and propose any revisions that will enable our UUA, our member congregations, and our covenanted communities to be a relevant and powerful force for spiritual and moral growth, healing, and justice. Proposed changes should articulate core UU theological values. The board believes that one core theological value shared widely among UUs is love. Dr. Cornel West says that justice is what love looks like in public. Our commitment to personal, institutional, and cultural change rooted in anti-oppression, anti-racism, and multiculturalism values and practices is love in action and should be centered in any revision of Article 2. The new principles and purposes should guide us in the transformation of ourselves, our communities, and our faith into active networks of collective care, restoration, and justice. The principles and purposes you will prepare should be a living document that challenges Unitarian Universalists to place the liberation in all its dimensions of all at the center of our lives. They should be honest about our past, name what we are facing and our aspirations, and where we hope to be, not just for today, but looking out at the horizons. They should ask us to choose love in action as the path forward. Our commitment to anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multiculturalism is love in action and should be centered in any revision of Article 2. Finally, the principles and purposes should lead us into the second quarter of the 21st century while honoring the historic roots of our liberal progressive faith. We therefore charge this commission to root its work in love as a principal guide in its work, attending particularly to the ways that we and our root traditions have understood and articulated love and how we have acted out of love. Word of the Lord? No. Word of the UUA Board of Trustees. But you can see from the beginning, before the Article 2 Study Commission began its work, how the idea that love would be at the center was part of the instruction they were given. That's the first reading this morning. We'll reflect on it now with some special music.
Good morning. My name is Jack Lohr, and I'm the spouse of the preacher. The second reading this morning is from Love is an Essential Spiritual and Moral Value by Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, former president of the UUA. She writes, "When my son was just 2 years old, I found him bringing all his stuffed animals into the shower. When I asked what he was up to, he answered, 'It's shower church.' I smiled and asked, 'Oh yeah? What's happening at shower church?' He told me he would be preaching. When I asked what he was preaching about, he answered simply, 'Love, Mommy, it's always love.' There's an old saying, that even the best preachers only have one or two sermons. We just keep finding ways to share them in new ways. In that moment, I thought my son had clearly figured out mine. Love is a core foundation of my religious understanding, but it is not a love that is simply an emotion, a feeling, or an expression of the bonds bonds of loyalty felt within a group. In personal relationships, when we love someone, we wish for them the fullest unfolding and development of who they are. We wish for them freedom, safety, joy, and life. Love, as a religious practice, extends our compassion, solidarity, and care beyond the personal to seeking the liberation and wholeness of every person. It reminds us of our fundamental interdependence with all of life. It is this understanding of love that formed one of the most precious gifts Unitarian Universalism has given me, the gift of a religion that teaches that the work of justice is inseparable from a faith rooted in love. This understanding that love and justice are inseparable was nurtured by my UU atheist and activist mom, who told me as a young child she did not believe in God, but if she did, she would believe God is love. To be a Unitarian Universalist in the context of a pained and unjust world is to be moved by a love that recognizes and honors our interdependence. It is my hope we do not turn away from responding to these times with our faith, our worship, and our ways of nurturing community. May all of these offer us deeper spiritual practices that cultivate the sustenance we need to be a powerful, faithful force of love and justice. Yours in love, Susan.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Ron, for the Chopin, reminding us that love is expressed sometimes in a major and sometimes a minor key. Yeah. In 1896, a small band of religious liberals decided to incorporate as a society with the purpose of promoting a religion that is rational, honest, progressive, and liberal, to help establish truth, righteousness, and love, and to furnish a church home for all who would find in the two great commandments the essentials of religion. The great commandments they referenced were from the Hebrew Scriptures: to love God, to love your neighbor. Over time, we would drop the reference to commandments in favor of the quest for truth and human values. But our goal is still to help establish justice and love among all people. My topic today is love with a capital L, followed by that weird sign called the interrobang, a question and an exclamation. I'm focused on the last sentence of the new Article 2 on the purposes of the UUA. It says something to me remarkable. The Unitarian Universalist Association will actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. I want to explore with you what we might mean by that love with a capital L, and how we can all live and thrive under that word. As I've prepared this message, I've noticed a certain anxiety creeping into my heart. I'm worried that you might not like everything I have to say today. Love is such a weaselly word. It means so many different things to so many people. And let's be honest, the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood can be a place where using words incorrectly leads to correction. We are not a church, we're a congregation. We don't worship, we have Sunday services. So if I get something wrong, try to be tolerant. And I want to assure you that each one of you had a special place when I was performing the metta meditation in my heart. I do love you. I love the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. It's why I'm here and why I do what I do. Each Sunday, we invoke the warmth of love as we light and as we extinguish our chalice. What are we saying? What power are we calling on? Is it, as we say in the 6 sources, a transforming power which, combined with justice and compassion, is powerful enough to confront powers and structures of evil? What is love? How do we define it? Some scientists have called it an emergent property of the mammalian autonomic nervous system. Some psychiatrists connect love and compassion with the attunement that happens through mirror neurons as we observe and empathize with others' actions. And James Joyce said it simply and tautologically: love loves to love love. Thankfully, I got some helpful responses from several of you as I was asking for help on today's topic. Georgetta Walsh offered this: when one is loved, they're seen and heard. One is comfortable being their authentic selves around those who love them. Thanks, Georgetta. Diane Schoen said, love for me is an unending commitment to a mysterious journey of truth, bringing gentle, caring, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness. One of the younger members of our congregation, Gus Summer, quoted Olaf from Frozen and said, it's putting someone else's needs before yours. Christine O'Neill quoted Martin Luther King Jr., as you press on for justice, be sure to move with dignity and discipline, using only the weapons of love. Samir Tari offered some words in Arabic, which I forget, I'm sorry, Samir, that give different nuances of human and divine love. He also mentioned songs by Depeche Mode and Sting. If you've ever received an email from Anita Young, you know that she quotes her mother: if you have love in your heart, you cannot be unkind. And she also quotes herself: your actions and words are a reflection of that love. Bob Jones, who recently moved to Pennsylvania, described the UU congregation where he has located. They talk a lot about love, he said. They put hearts everywhere. They even call their newsletter the Love Letter. But they have no discernible engagement in social justice. There's not even a social action committee. Bob said, love is more than an emotion and more than an intention. And John Hallinar gave a robust response. He said, I would say love is an emotion that I reserve for a select few people: my wife, my kids, my grandkids. Love is not the primary reason I joined USR and what motivates me to participate in services on Sunday morning. That's why I am not a big fan of the new UU Values flower, which has love at the core values of UUism. When I'm trying to explain to people what UUs are all about, my elevator speech includes that we are truth seekers, learning from the teachings of many different religions and philosophies, knowing full well that we're probably never going to find the truth we're seeking, but also knowing that there is value in the journey to find that truth. I don't think I've ever mentioned love in that context. Before this became the official graphic representing our new Article 2 values, USR member Martin Walker raised 3 challenges to the word love as a signifier for how all the facets are connected, and he proposed, although it wasn't accepted, that we somehow amend the Article 2. He wrote this: God is love is a notion strongly identified with Christianity, and headlining of that word blurs the boundary between you, and that majority faith, privileging Christianity over other religions and alienating believers in atheism and agnostics. He also said love has deeply emotional connotations for many people, which creates a schism amongst our membership between those for whom this is the case and those for whom it is not. And he said love has a colloquial association with eroticism, which is inherently re-traumatizing to survivors of child and adult sexual abuse. As a survivor myself, he said, I want this to be heard and understood. Fully 15 to 25% of our membership almost certainly fall into this group, which is seldom heard from. Another commentator on Article 2 proposed to decapitalize every reference to love in Article 2 and argued that the unusual initial capitalization of the word love seems to suggest that the reader must know what we mean by love, and that our understanding of this term is not the common understanding. I don't think we should be using something that comes across as insider speak. And to be honest, I sort of agree. We've put love at the center without giving it a clear definition. The English language, we all know this, uses this one word, love, with such a vast cloud of meaning that sometimes it can look like a wispy cirrus, sometimes a cushiony cumulus, and other times a robust nimbostratus. We can list just a few of the 173 synonyms for love from thesaurus.com, 173 different meanings: affection, appreciation, devotion, emotion, fondness, friendship, infatuation, lust, passion, respect, tenderness, yearning, sentiment, weakness, worship, zeal. You get my drift? There's a word for this overabundance of meaning. The word is polysemy, or maybe you've heard it said polysemy. Polysemy describes the capacity of a sign, such as a word, phrase, or symbol, to have multiple related, but sometimes confusing meanings. It's part of the magic of language that we can usually understand each other given the context in which we're talking, except when we are engaged in cryptology, which the OED defines as secret speech or communication, and mystical or enigmatical language, cryptology. It's a good word. It has nothing to do with solving codes. That's what we might seem to be doing with this UUA ambiguously defined word love at the center of our values. The UUA Board of Trustees, who gave the charge to Article 2's study commission and effectively told them to put love at the center, probably exaggerated the extent to which, as they said, one core theological value shared widely among UUs is love. Actually, the study that they cited found that only about half of Unitarian Universalists used any of these words as they described their faith: love, compassion, connection, or community. Half of us did not happen to use the word love. When I touch my own heart, however, I can feel the power of love beating in the frequency of something bigger and higher than myself. It's the connection that I feel to someone I met while canvassing last week in Pennsylvania, somebody who's going to be voting for the other candidate, but who agreed with me when I said, no matter who gets elected in November, we're all in this together, because we're all human beings. And he said, yes. For me, love is a power that takes me out of myself and at the same time deeply into myself. Don't understand me, or don't misunderstand me if I say that love is a value that is selfless. It's not the self-sacrificing love of a martyr. I mean that love is selfless in the sense that it overcomes or even obliterates that selfish sense of ego and makes life all about me instead of being all about life. Some days I have such an overwhelming sense of love inside me that I connect to every other being on the planet. And at other times, it's a very focused kind of love. When Janice and I got married 55 years ago, we put a reminder inside our wedding rings that says, our love should not be just words and talk. It must be true love that shows itself in action. The true measure of love, as I say it, is what we do with love. Here are some examples of love in action. The Patterson Black Lives Matter group conducts a monthly mutual aid and harm reduction gathering that provides food, supplies, and assistance to vulnerable community members. It started during the pandemic, and it continues. The Ironbound Community Corporation, which we heard about last week, has been putting love into action for over 50 years through its tireless efforts to empower and uplift the Ironbound community of Newark. By combining direct services, community organizing, and advocacy, ICC demonstrates a deep, action-oriented love for its community. Each one of USR's justice teams is doing the work of love. Racial justice, environmental justice, immigrant action, reproductive justice, LGBTQ+ rights, all of these and more engage with love with a capital L. So sisters and brothers of USR, please remember that in addition to the polysemous love at the center of our Unitarian Universalist faith values flower, we have a second focal principle. It's found in Article 2, Chapter C, 2.5, Freedom of Belief. Congregational freedom and the individual's right of conscience are central to our Unitarian Universalist heritage. So maybe it's not a circle, maybe it's an oval with two foci. With little help from AI, I've got this expressed as a flower. Freedom of conscience, another central value of Unitarian Universalism. It means that we are free to decide what love means to each one of us. Maybe love is a name for your higher power. Perhaps you resonate with Cornel West, justice is what love looks like in public, or maybe you add the words of Martin Luther King Jr., power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. However you define it, love is more than a feeling, it's a decision. Love and justice, compassion and conviction, acceptance and transformation. These are two sides of a single coin. Susan Frederick Gray said it best, the work of justice is inseparable from a faith rooted in love. And to that I say, amen.